All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this conversation today. As you know, we started this today, the Startup Without Borders second edition summit. During the summit, we are discussing conversations to bring in entrepreneurship to the larger community and underrepresented community all across the world. The conversations has varied from education to access to training. Today, in this specific panel, we're discussing access to financial services and banking people, the community. As you're aware, the risk for coronavirus transcends society classes and cut across all community. The unvulnerable community get affected more with the dual crisis of the coronavirus, both health and also economic crisis that been hit on the community. Where many of the startups and businesses around the world they rely to move online with their services and their products and start to shift to sell online. A lot of people with the unvulnerable communities, just like refugees and people with not developed ecosystems, they find this very challenging for them to be able to join the online movement and sells more online in that sense. Not being able to receive wire transfer or have a banking account is only single-handed cost that might put their business and opportunity go to waste. Um, Receiving money is imposing a great challenge for many people. Be able to manage or access their finances as well. The complexity of the banking services that happening makes a huge problems. For that, we have a great expert people with us today that will be helping to run the conversation among us to understand how what role we can do to play in overcome those challenges that we're having. I'm here with me today. We have Doha Ahmed. She's a fintech expert. She's joining in from Cairo today in Egypt. Hugo, he's coming from UK and he's the co-founder and the CEO of Flare Startups. Before we kick off, I would love to get to speak to you, give you the opportunity if you'd like to tell us a little bit about your background, your expertise, so people be aware about your background. So I would like to start. I would like to tell us a little bit more about your background, about your work.
Of course.
Like,
yes.
Yeah, that's
so,
great.
Shall I go first as the woman or first?
Yes, ladies first, always.
Okay, so first of all, it's such a delight to have you all here in this Zoom meeting or online summit. It's such a great thing that happened after COVID, that we're having an online digital era, that we can have all people joining in one place to talk about a certain topic. So this is one of the great things that happened after COVID, that we can join in and blend in our expertise from different countries or different backgrounds. Second, I would love to join or to thank actually the panel and the moderator for having their time to share their knowledge and expertise again with the attendees. Thank you for coming to join us to know more about the Fintech ecosystem and what's happening and the disturbance that happened after COVID. And thank you for taking time of your weekend to join here and hear about what's happening and how the world is changing in order to embrace a better or financial services nowadays. This is Doha Ahmed. I'm from Asatli. I'm a co-founder of Asatli. Asatli is a fintech startup that started luckily before COVID, and we launched in the first very few months of COVID. Asatli is a startup that serves or helps the unbanked to have more access to financial services. So we help them to
I think Doha is facing challenges with the internet. we can give a couple of seconds if her connections can get back again. Meanwhile, I think we can jump to UK. Hopefully, can you tell us a little bit more? Okay, we lost her now. Hopefully, she will get back again.
I'll jump in there so we don't waste end up losing too much time, and hopefully Doha will join us again in a second. There she is. But why don't I jump on and whilst Doha gets sorted out. Hi, I'm Hugo. Good morning. Thank you for watching. Thank you for having us here. I'm co-founder of Flare. Flare is a new smart contract platform, so a decentralized smart contract platform. What that means, for the people who are not aware of what that is today when you run software, it runs when you run a program. It runs on a server or a computer that is controlled by an entity. Let's call that entity like Amazon or Google. Now, what a smart contract is it's a place it's a decentralized network which allows you to run a program, a piece of software, and that piece of software is run by many different participants. And what that means is that there's no single, I guess, control point for that software. And then further, what that means is that it allows people to come to agreement over certain things, over what has happened in that software, what the outcomes are of a calculation, and it allows that to come to agreement across a decentralized network, many participants, as opposed to just Google or Amazon telling you the answer, or indeed your bank telling you how many dollars you own. And why that is important is that if we're going to move to a position where there is more open access to finance, and this is something that is important, not just for vulnerable people, but particularly for vulnerable people, but for everyone. If you're going to move to a position of sort of more open access and just greater participation, then you need really a de-restricted system, a system that can be regulated, of course, but a system that does not have some large incumbent players that control it and therefore control the lives of everyone in it. And so that's what a smart contract platform is, and that's what we're building. And we're building that to serve an ecosystem at the moment called the Xrp ecosystem. That's part of Ripple. And Ripple have really been, well, it's not part of Ripple, it was started by Ripple. And what Ripple is a cross-border payments company which uses the Xrp ledger. And so the Xrp ledger and Ripple basically set that up to revolutionize payments because there's a vast amount of money essentially tied up in making payments happen across borders. And if we can make that easier and cheaper and faster, then that is better for everyone. It's better for people who are working, let's say, abroad and need to make remittances back home to their home countries. And it's better for everyone else because there's much less capital tied up in making payments, because today there's trillions of dollars of capital that are just sitting there making payments happen in what's known as nostro vostro accounts. And that money could be put to other uses. So I'll leave that introduction there, but that's what I'm working on.
Great, thank you so much for the introduction. And I think we have also with us Mr. Ahmad Ismail from the Basel Hall. I don't know if you can hear us. Hello.
Thank you, Ahmed. It's the voice is not very clear from my side, but thank you. This is helpful. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ayman Ismail, and I am the director for AUC Venture Lab, our startup accelerator at the American University in Cairo. And for the past probably 5 years or more, I've been working very closely with fintech startups in Egypt and in the region Part of our program, acceleration program, we have a fintech accelerator that has been working with entrepreneurs in this space for a while. We also work very closely with other organizations in that ecosystem, including banks and other types of organizations. And we have frequent discussions with regulators around the issues and challenges that are facing fintech startups. Personally, I've also been involved in a number of startups, especially in the payment space, that are working on facilitating payments for entrepreneurs and for businesses in general. Very happy to be with you and to actually discuss how we can think through the fintech space and how that can actually support entrepreneurs through their journey.
Thank you so much, Ayman. And as we have you now on the screen, it was like a little bit far. I would like to get your expertise to tell us, how do you see the fintech industry actually moving and becoming more accessible to the vulnerable communities, specifically how they are trying to target the people that never been covered with the finance technology? Is it growing? How do you see that from your perspective as the lab and also as the AUC Angels as well?
Thank you, Ahmed. If we're thinking about the fintech, we have to think from different dimensions. So first, you can start thinking about the startups. What do the startups need? The startups need to be able to receive payments from their customers. Many of them are moving online, and if they're going to sell their products and services online, then the online payment or the payment in general is a very important component. Traditionally, in most emerging markets, payments has worked on cash on delivery, but that creates a lot of challenges. So having digital payments is a great enabler. So that's the first thing. Second thing, from a startup perspective, they think a lot about financing. Do they have the right working capital financing? And especially for micro businesses or small companies, accessing bank finances or other types of financing is very limited. So you have to start thinking about microfinancing, and you have to start thinking about tech-enabled financing. Third, there are many challenges on the logistics and supply chain side for the startups, and having digital solution in that space is extremely important. And fourth, the startups themselves have to pay their own suppliers, and having part of it is the supply chain, but having also the digital payment in that is important. So these are all different aspects from a startup perspective. Now, we have to think from the companies that are providing those payment services. If you look out there, you will find that there's a lot of evolution on the payment space, and that's in Egypt, but it's also globally, whether through mobile wallets that started in Kenya and now are becoming pervasive in many parts of the world. In Egypt, we have now more than 16 mobile wallets and double-digit growth month over month in mobile payments, and people use them a lot for peer-to-peer transfers, for transferring money to other people, and also for transferring for payments, for bill payment. But now we have to start using them actually for purchasing, and that's kind of what's coming. So that's one side. Now, what kind of enabling environment support this? We have to start thinking about different dimensions. One of them is the regulation from a government perspective. Do we have the right regulatory framework that allows that? Do we have the right laws and regulations that makes it easy for companies to actually engage in that payment? And in Egypt, for example, we started having a lot of these payment infrastructure regulations changing in the last couple of years substantially, and that's creating growth in that space. We also need to start thinking about how can we get people to interact with the payment systems, whether mobile wallets or credit cards or others, without having to physically go and sign up in a place. So we're starting to see a lot of those complete digital experiences, digital sign-on, in some countries even digital banks that are coming in. And that requires some infrastructure that we call electronic KYC, eKYC, or other types of infrastructure for facial recognition, for biometrics, to allow people to log in, sign on, and get their credentials and become part of that payment platform. So having that enabling environment is extremely important. So what we're seeing in the fintech space is that many startups are coming in now, and using the opportunity that there is a market need and there's also opening in regulation and starting to offer solutions. Those are solutions that allow people to pay. They allow companies to accept those payments. If you're a small company, you can accept them, and we call those acceptance solutions. And they're also providing services for the micro, small, and medium enterprises in the form of credit, financing, working capital financing, and other types of services. That is changing the dynamic substantially. The level of adoption is growing, but I think this year, next year, especially accelerated by COVID, we're seeing a lot of growth in that space. Many of the businesses are trying to go online, so they're trying to find digital solutions for payments, and the governments are responding to that, and the startups are responding to that. So we're probably at a point of inflection in that payment space, and at the beginning of the kind of the credit and working capital evolution of that space as well.
Interesting. Thank you so much for bringing that. Yes, do agree that we've seen, because of COVID, a huge wave of democratizing the financial services to come to the larger scale of the communities. I would like to discuss with you different aspects of this financial services. First, I would like to see why it's important for people to access the value of blockchain token. And we know that there's a lot of decentralized applications that cannot be able to access that or cannot be able to use it. With the revolution of the blockchain and the smart contract, we can be able to do a tremendous change in this sector. Can you put us a little bit deeper into this, why this is, you think is valuable, and how this will actually disrupt the environment that we live in and the other services around us?
Absolutely. So, picking up on some of the points that were just made, one of the things that was mentioned very clearly, I think, from the last speaker, was the idea of KYC and the digital identities. Now, one of the fears I have, and also one of the restrictions, I think, by allowing it to be done in a centralized manner, is that, one, if you essentially appoint companies to do that on your behalf, then you end up with a new behemoth or a new incumbent, and they get to decide what and what doesn't work on the system. And so one of the things that blockchain is really trying to bring in to the fintech world is this idea of composability. So once you have a system on a blockchain, on a smart contract platform, let's say it's an identity system, and it's an identity system obviously run by one particular organization, maybe a decentralized organization, but it's still an organization. Now you may have other identity systems run by other organizations, either centralized or decentralized. The great thing is that if they're on a blockchain as a substrate, as a platform, is that they can be used together, and they can be used with applications that no one ever thought they would be used for on day one. And this is really where blockchain is unbelievably, I suppose, transformative, in that the ability to have essentially an open data protocol or an open protocol allows for innovation in a space where no one really thought of innovation before. So that's banking and finance. So, it's been very similar for a long time, and now we can enable innovation. So let me give you one real quick example of that. Last week, I had to send $2,000 to Japan. Now I could have done that through my bank, and I could have paid $25 fees. Instead, I did it through Kraken, which is an exchange. I bought some Tether USD, which is a stable token, which is backed by dollars. And I sent it for $2.5, I believe. So a tenth of the price that my bank would charge me to Japan. And it got there within minutes. And that is, a hugely transformative thing that will revolutionize the way payments and the way the world works and the way business works. And so what we're doing at Flare is we're trying to enable smart contracts for many of the tokens that are out there, so for instance, XRP or Bitcoin, that simply don't have smart contracts. Because smart contracts are that additional layer of functionality that make everything composable and useful.
Interesting, thank you. As we have Shahaba with us, I hope you can. Yes, welcome back. Thanks to have you. So before you left, we were like trying to discuss how do you see the fintechs movement now? What are the trends that's here? What's the entrepreneurs who can listen to us can see and learn and try to adopt? And also, what do you see the main challenges? Not to name all, but to name the most for people who are entering this new market, they need to take care of.
So definitely, as from our background, we always focus on the unbanked. So how the unbanked are really important to fit into the system, and how can we, by enabling access to finance for these people, enable the inclusiveness to serve financial inclusion, and hence to embrace a better economy for any country, especially here in Egypt or any developing country, especially after COVID. So how the unbanked are growing, or how they're living nowadays after the coronavirus. The problem is huge, actually, because 2.5 billion people are unbanked worldwide. More than 60% of these people who are unbanked in Egypt and in the MENA region. And these people, guess what? They need money. And when actually they need money, they have two options. It's either they go to the bank and they do not find any helpful solution, because banks actually offer nowadays and before the corona complex banking products. The banking products do not understand the behavior or the nature of the environment of these people. They are not able or capable of helping them or offering for them a fat solution. So what people do is they rely on informal lending. And we can find informal lending as unsafe, inconvenient, and of course expensive for them. So how this problem is huge, and how big is this problem? Actually, we can find more than 90 million people do not have credit card, or they are not unbanked, and there is actually huge people, or a huge slice of people who are banked or underbanked or beyond banks. So we are talking about 2/3 of the people worldwide. They do not have access or actual access to financial inclusion or to financial solutions. More than 60% are unbanked. Yet the good thing about this situation is they do have smartphones, they do have access to internet, they do have mobile applications, so they can still rely on digital. They do informal lending with huge amount. The last thing I read, it was like in Egypt, people are relying on informal lending from their families, friends, or other sources by huge amounts. And we're speaking of 35 million in the last 6 months. So the offer B is to offer financial services that are easy for these people to have actual or real access to financial inclusion or to money. So through our solution, we have built a virtual credit card with a payment installment system for the unbanked, so they can have more access to money. They can apply for a limit or money, and they can buy products and services online, and then they can pay in installments. So we're helping both sides.
Probably we lost her again.
I feel like one of the things, if we want fintech in the MENA region, is we need better internet.
Sure. Totally overwhelming, like kind of and shocking numbers that have been presented. 2.5 billion people that actually still not just out of use of the internet, but also have to use the fintechs. As we're getting close to the end of this session, I would like to ask you, Mr. Ayman, if you can What's your advice for early stage entrepreneurs, that people who's coming now to the scene of the fintech? What's your advice will be in terms of, it could be what sector to focus on, what challenge to expect for them to do? What's your tips for them in this?
Ahmed, I would focus on three things. First thing, a lot of companies now are assuming that fintech is going to be great, so let's go and provide payment services and people are going to jump on it. Reality is that most people are actually not going to jump on financial technology solutions, payment solutions, for a very simple reason. Cash is very convenient. We all like to use cash, and everybody's been used to doing that, using it in everyday transactions for a long time. So if you're starting a business in fintech, especially things related to payment, you have to think about what is the real value that you're providing to your customers, individuals or companies. Are they really, really, really going to benefit out of it to the point that they're willing to abandon cash? If you go to a small business and you tell them, take this acceptance solution, and by the way, we're going to charge you 2, 3, 4, 5%, which might be in some cases half of your profit margin or even more, and it's going to be nice. Nice is not enough. You have to think about what is the value that they're adding, that you're adding to that business from an economic sense. Are you actually giving them access to customers they did not have? Are you reducing a specific cost item for them? So that's the first thing. Second thing is about being in tune with regulations. There's a lot of regulatory changes that is happening right now. Governments are interested in bringing a lot of the informal economy to the to formalize it, and a big part of that is actually trying to bring the payments from cash to digital payments so that they actually become part of the system. So being in tune with regulation is extremely important, because you're going to see many openings on the regulatory chain, on the regulatory space, allowing other services, whether microfinance, nanofinance, microinsurance, all of those list of services. So those are opening new opportunities for startups and entrepreneurs to actually get into those spaces and look at it. Third thing is about execution. A lot of people create a nice solution, they go and put it in the market, but executing in payment space or in fintech space is a lot more complicated than just going and doing a campaign online or things like that. There are many challenges in making sure that your network is secure, that things are safe, that you can reach the right customers, that your applications can scale, that your infrastructure can scale, that you're in compliance with the regulations, with the data privacy. It's a lot more complicated than, for example, running an e-commerce business in the same space. Money is a very complicated product, and people want to make sure that the transactions are safe and secure and scalable and so on. So you have to really, really invest in the execution side. And the implication of all of these things is that fintech businesses are harder to bootstrap. You probably need higher levels of investments, and you need to create a lot more partnerships. So you have to start thinking about that dimension as well. So these are things that I would advise that we take care of and that we keep in mind. And I think that there will be a lot more opportunities coming in the next year or two, and openings in that space.
Interesting. Thank you so much for the very thoughtful feedbacks and tips for people. I would also like to ask you the question, but in the completely different sector, not completely different, but like in the different sector of the blockchain, especially to focus on the value that happening. We see a lot of people confusing tokens as the business itself, rather than it's the part of value of the or service that providing for the business. I would like to see what's your tips for people who's entering the industry and would like to support getting those 2.5 billion people with no financial services into the market.
I think, you know, as the last speaker said, regulation is pretty much key. There is no point starting a business if you can't make it legal, at which point, you know, you're going to go bankrupt very quickly. So regulation is key, and it's something that many people in our industry blockchain specifically, have not really heeded, and they must, because we must, if we're going to make the future in any way decentralized, meaning not controlled by very large corporates, but instead controlled by us as people, then we must make sure that governments essentially are happy with this and that it can be done properly. The second thing is there's an awful lot of tokens out there, and many people are just trying to get rich off the tokens. The reality is the tokens really ought to exist for the purpose they're meant to serve, which is a utility to an ecosystem around which they are building. And if you look at people who are financially vulnerable, or if you look at people who are actually physically vulnerable, the two may be the same, but they may also be different groups. If you wish to serve them, then there cannot be just a token that just makes money. You are having to actually do some work, and you are having to engage the community. And so, that's a very long way from where we are in blockchain today. It's going to take a while, but we hope that it will be feasible, and we certainly think it will. And companies like Ripple that make payments cheaper and faster and sort of disrupt the existing, essentially very, very controlled financial system are great examples of companies that are sort of leading the way to make things better for people. So I'll leave that there.
Awesome, thank you so much. Sadly, our time just run very quickly. The conversation is not ending here, and hopefully also you can reach out to the speakers throughout the platform. So if you're not on the platform, make sure that to sign up, and then just go to the launch and then contact with the speakers directly. The conversation will continue in the different panels at the different stages all throughout the day. So make sure to following. I would like to thank all the three amazing panelists. It was great to bring different perspectives to the table and different opinions. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for the panels for joining the sessions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Ahmad.
Thank you, Ahmad. Thank you, everybody.